Hi! Okay, this is a little insane. There's chaos behind me, but I covered it with a blanket, so... Okay. So, hello again. I'm a little hot. Or the day is a little hot. But I am also a little hot. Look at my crazy hair right now. I don't know. I'm kind of digging it. It's kind of fun because it looks chaotic, but I'm actually kind of digging it. So you know what? That's fine. Okay. So, hi. My name is Kath. And this is the last video of the Daucus Carota series, which I am actually recording on the day that it's supposed to be uploaded, so yikes. My entire plan was to make videos like a couple of weeks before I had to upload them, just in case I got sick or something, and then I could have a backlog, but that's obviously not working. I'm leaving the windows open and there's noise because of this, but that's because, you know, it's a warm day today. So, let's just deal with it. Okay, so, also, this hand has been painted, this hand has not. Let's just deal with it. Whatever. Okay, I was in the middle of it. I forgot. Okay, that's the truth of it. Okay, I was in the middle of doing that, and then I decided to do something else, and then I realized I forgot to paint my nails, and yeah, so there's that. Okay, again, back to the point of the video. So, this video is just the tangent, so pretty much some information that was either relevant, but kind of just a little bit, or not even close to relevant, but I found it interesting enough that in the middle of my research I kind of just went on a tangent and I was like, really? That's interesting, tell me more. So, first, in terms of uses, like super quickly, the Daucus Carota, or like Queen Anne's lace, is also used as a dye stuff, which I thought was kind of interesting, and it's supposed to give a creamy off-white color, so not white, but like kind of creamy white, which, okay. And it's also apparently a high school science experiment where you put it, like you cut the flower and you put it, you add color in the, or dye in the water, and then you put the flower in the water, and the color of the flower changes, which, you know, I thought, like I thought that was kind of cute, a cute idea, and I imagine it's easier to dye them with like the tiny little flowers versus, you know, carnations and stuff like that have longer petals, which kind of cute, but I don't know, not that interesting. In terms of symbolism, there were the idea that where in the previous videos we said that the queens were kind of connected to this flower because of the fact that they both liked lace and or even made lace, and goddamn, I cannot do I cannot do words today. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, so they were connected to the idea of these flowers because they both were related or connected to lace in some ways, and this flower is very lace-like, so there was that. But there's also the fact that Queen Anne, the wife, to distinguish her, the wife of King James I, used to wear this gown, this clothing that had like big lace around her head, so that's also one of the reasons why it's connected to the Queen Anne's lace, or she is connected to the Queen Anne's lace. And then in terms like more like esoteric uses, because of the legend of the Queen Anne who dropped like a drop of blood on her lace when she finished it, if you were using a spell and it needed to you needed to substitute for blood for whatever reason. You needed to use blood in your spell. You could technically substitute this flower for the blood because it's connected to blood through this mythos. Then going aside from just the name to the other name of the plant, which is bird's nest. I think these videos in the future, in the future I should just cut this video in segments because there's nothing really connecting this. Right now there's just small pieces of information that were interesting, but like where I was gonna put them in the video, I don't know. So whatever, let's go to the idea of the symbolism of air, which I investigated because the flower also has this connection to the not a connection, but it has multiple names, and one of its names is the bird's nest, which I thought was kind of cute. And it's I don't remember if I said it in the previous videos because it's been such a long stretch of time from the first video to this video, but it's called that way pretty much because when it dries it kind of goes concave, or like just curls in on itself, and it looks a little bit like a bird's nest, so got the name. It's a very visual name. So I was trying to figure out whether there was anything in the bird or the nest or a symbology that could relate to purity and wisdom, and then I figured out air was also related to this, and when it comes to air, you can actually have a connection to the symbolism of air and wisdom itself. But then I thought it's kind of like it was too far away, right? You're picking a name and then you are kind of thinking, oh, okay, both of these things give me this image in my head, so that also has to be with it. Air also has to do with the idea of bird and nest, because nests are high up in the trees and birds fly, so obviously air can also come into play, but it was, a few degrees of separation there, so I didn't really add too much to it. But I found that there's quite a lot of interesting things about the air in them. Is that, for example, air as a symbol, or the bird as a symbol of air, is also a symbol, like the bird itself is also a symbol of spiritual travel, because sacred things are supposed to be high. Your higher self, or the higher being. And in terms of just of the element of air, the air is an element of creativity, intellect, happiness, intelligence, learning, thinking, imagination, harmony, travel, obviously, clarity, knowledge, strategy, and perception, which I guess you can make an entire video of like the air symbology and go in depth to it, but I don't really feel the need right now, because for me it's just like, okay, this is information that I found that I thought, okay, that's kind of cool, but it has nothing to do with the original topic of the video, so I'm not gonna dig in deeper. One thing I forgot, apparently air is considered to be male. It's a male element, and it is connected to spring, to the direction to the east, and cleansing power. So that's interesting. I didn't quite make the connection of like air with cleansing. Where I used to live, it was during dry season, you would have just dust in the air for everywhere, and then the air would just blow it into your house, and it doesn't matter how many times you cleaned the floors, it was just always dirty. So I didn't connect it with cleansing, but I guess you could. It's subjective. But also it governs the heart and throat, governs the mind, which resides in the heart and throat chakra. So that's interesting as well. But all of those I'm telling you because I was like, oh, that's kind of cute, that's cool, but that's not the interesting part. This is the interesting part. Okay, eggs. And I realized at the time I was getting a little desperate, so I was trying to like go, okay, what else those, like, where can I grab that I can think, wisdom and purity. So because it also called bird's nest, I thought, okay, what is in the nest? Eggs. So you're okay, that's interesting. I'm gonna try and go on that side and figure out if there's an answer to that from this side of the equation. But when I was doing my summary, I was like, come on, that's grasping at straws. No. But I had fun investigating. Whatever. The eggs have quite a bit of interesting information, actually. So from a symbolic point of view, eggs are kind of consistently connected to the idea of creation and resurrection. And there is this Latin saying, which I don't really know. I don't really know if I'm gonna pronounce it right, but it means all life comes from the egg, which is said. So the saying is "Omne vivum ex ovo," which, okay, cool. I found it interesting, and I mean I can see where it comes from, like the idea of from egg comes creation, and even maybe resurrection, because if you look at an egg, you don't really think of it as an alive thing, but a living thing comes out of it. So I can see where that comes from. Okay, so the Romans believed the eggs had aphrodisiac powers and were a symbol of fertility, which I think has a lot to do with the idea of fertility and creation kind of come hand in hand, I think. And this is for the same reason I was saying before. It's the symbol. It's symbolic of a new life breaking forth from the egg, right? Because you have the little, in this case, I guess, chicken eggs. You got the egg, and then the little chick that comes out of it kind of has to break the egg to get out. It was also an indication of life after death, because the egg itself was considered a dead thing, and then from it came life. Which, okay. I mean, I can see where that idea came from, but it feels like grasping at straws from my point of view. But then that's another culture and another context, so usually when you have an egg, it also symbolizes, or it's, I guess, when you're putting an egg in this, it can be also a metaphor of new life and unhatched potential. And I think the idea of unhatched potential can be connected with any new life, right? Because it's brand new, you have done nothing with it. And one of the interesting things about the Romans connecting the eggs with this idea of resurrection is that it used to be used as a way to nourish the dead in the afterlife. So in Greek and Roman tombs, people would place eggs in the tombs because it was a way of nourishing your lost loved ones. It's also kind of interesting. It's connected in the idea that it's connected to the Dionisio. I don't know how to pronounce it in English. Dionysus. I don't know, Dionisio. In that, well, I guess it's as old as time. Some people die very young, and according to the mythos, Dionysius would bring an egg to young people that were about to die, just to announce it to them, to let them know, hey, your death is kind of coming near, and I know you're not expecting it because you're young, but it's coming. It was also placed as offerings for in the tombs, as I said before, but they were also not only as nourishment, but kind of like a wish for resurrection. So let's say you have somebody you love very, very much and you miss them quite a bit, and you wish that they would come back to life or be given another chance to live. So you would also leave some eggs in the tomb as a way of signaling to the gods, as an offering, but also as a signal to the gods that you would wish this person could come back from the dead, which is actually does translate a little to the Catholic or Christian faith, in the sense that the egg is used in the Christian faith as a metaphor of Christ breaking out of his tomb after resurrection. Much, like we were saying before, the little chick breaking the egg. Sorry, I was distracted by the sound. Okay, so there's also the connection with the circle of life, because the egg is considered a dead thing, and then from this dead thing comes, a chick which is alive, and then it grows up and it reproduces and it creates another egg, and so on and so forth. So there's this connection with the idea of the circle of life, and it's kind of also a little. In my culture, at least, I've always associated the egg with the el mal de ojo, the evil eye. So it's a way of not only figuring out whether or not you have it. So shamans would, I don't know the entire way the shamans will do this. So, but for what I observed, they would rub it on you, and then they break it, and then they can figure out whether or not you have the mal de ojo. And it's also a way of extracting the mal de ojo from you, and then trap it inside of this egg. And then there's a specific way of disposing of this egg, but because of this, it's not it's only in Ecuador or Latin American countries. It seems to be a recurring theme that the egg is a symbol of protection against the evil eye or evil in general, and because of it, it's also a symbol of good luck. So it's that I found that interesting. I wonder if in Italy it's the same. I know the Italians have some of their own beliefs when it comes to the evil eye. So I don't know. Then in Asian cultures, I don't know as much, but for what I managed to research, the egg is considered a symbol of good luck and wealth, and because it has, it's a protection idea, right? It has a hard shell that protects this potential inside of it. It protects the little life that can come from it, and because of this, it's also, connected to the idea of rebirth, rejuvenation in the cycle of life, which they connect with the idea of, the shape of the egg, that it doesn't really have an end or a beginning if you trace it, right? Because I also found that because it's, it has this idea, these nurturing qualities, it's connected to the element of earth, but that's kind of on the side. I just thought it was interesting. I'm very much interested in finding out about the different rituals and ways eggs were connected to offerings and little mythos, because the idea of you chilling and living your life and doing your own thing, and then suddenly Dionysius shows up and just offers you an egg, and you're like, okay, so I guess I'm dying. What do you do with that egg? Just okay, I guess I'm dying. That's it. But I guess you could prepare. I don't know. Then I was looking at the religious. Okay, so changing topic. I really do need to learn how to do like segments or something in this YouTube thing. This one is driving me crazy. Yeah. Okay. So changing topic. Next stuff. I was looking at the idea of protection, or not just protection itself, but the Catholic Church, because there was this connection with the Queen Anne's lace, with the use of the Catholic Church of lace as vestments in rituals, in religious rituals. So I figured, okay, maybe there's a connection between the Catholic Church and the possibility of this flower being connected to lace, which is in turn connected to the sacred and religious ceremonies. Again, kind of few of degrees of separation, but I was again getting desperate, so I did that. I did it. Okay, so in doing that, I started investigating the idea of sacred, right? And from that, I ended up somehow investigating the idea of sanctuary, like the old sanctuary that the church could offer, because I just found it fascinating. Okay, at this point it has nothing to do with the Queen Anne's lace. I was just like, oh, that's cool. Now, sanctuary, according to the investigation I did, didn't necessarily mean what it means to us today. It just was a sacred place, such as a shrine or a temple, right? So, for example, a temple of Athena would theoretically still be a sanctuary, even if you didn't have refugees or anything being protected in this sanctuary, right? It just was a place that was sacred. But in places that are sacred, right, that are close to the idea of divinity, right, by extension, it kind of means it starts to begin to mean safety, in the idea that if you're in a sacred place, you don't want to do things that could cause other people harm, because you want to respect this sacred place. So that's where it comes the separation between human sanctuary and non-human sanctuary. So you could have this sacred place that gives protection to humans, or you can have this sacred place that gives protection to, for example, relics or plants or animals, or I don't know, important documents that are relevant for one reason or another, and are for any other reason or another in danger. Now, the word sanctuary is derived from Latin. I cannot do this. From Latin, which means from the word. I'm tongue-tied. Okay. Sanctuary is a word derived from the Latin word sanctuarium, which sounds pretty similar. Okay. Like most words with this, arium at the end of it, apparently it just means a container to keep things in. So, a sanctuary originally was just a place where you contained a sacred place where you contained something holy. So, this could be, as I said before, sacred relics, or it could be very dear people, like people that were very dear to you. Just the important part of it is just it's a sacred place where something or someone is contained. And from this use of the word, right, from this concept that it was a holy place that meant safety, therefore the sacred things or the sacred or the people, that's where the idea of sanctuary starts getting connected to the idea of safety. So for example, sorry, I'm getting confused. I'm just gonna edit that out. Fuck it. Okay. So sanctuary is derived from the word from the Latin. Okay, so sanctuary is derived from the Latin word sanctuarium, which sounds pretty similar to me, which is kind of cool. And apparently, many Latin words that end with arium tend to mean container. So in the case of sanctuarium, it's just a sacred place that contains either holy stuff or important people, dear people, for whatever reason. So this, because of this idea of a container, it could be a temple, or it could be also the grounds that belong to this temple. So it starts becoming a demarcated area. And because this idea of you're in a sacred place, so you will not do things to harm, is relevant in this situation, then you also start kind of gluing the idea of sanctuary to safety. Now, when it came to the Catholic Church, because I was investigating, or Catholic Christian Church, because I was investigating this in particular, given the idea of the vestments, and when it came down to, I keep forgetting, the lace. Okay. Again, the Christian Church, for them, sanctuary has a very specific meaning, in that it can be an architectural term. Okay, so it's a very specific part covering the interior of the church, around the old altar, and it just depends. It can be, depending on the style, very complex or simple. So it can be, as I said before, it can be the concept that's a fly just went right by the camera. So it can be a specific place, a structure inside of the church, or it can be the concept, during the Roman Catholic I forgot the dates. Okay, so because the church in itself, the church is obviously a sacred ground, it's also a protected space, both at the beginning and then even now. It's a social concept, and until I think the 17th century, it was also a legal concept, that it just doesn't look good if, for whatever reason, you send a SWAT team inside of a church. It's not a good look for you as a politician. So in that way, you have, the protection of the church. And this comes from two points of view. So the pagans were already doing this. Okay, so you were already having sanctuary given to people in pagan temples. So Catholic Church brought it, grandfathered it in. But it's also because during the Roman Empire, the church leaders were a little concerned that when it came to, I guess, the law, the political leadership was more interested in punishing than restoring the moral balance of the wrongdoers. So they thought, oh, you're just punishing people for, like, to scare them into not committing crimes, where in reality what you should be doing is bringing them closer to God. So so what they did, I needed some water, but I forgot to fill my glass because I'm a genius like that. Whatever. So what they did was create this idea of the sanctuary of the church. So what that means is that as a fugitive, you could run to the church and they could not arrest you in the church. And this even became recognized by the English law in the 4th century, and it was part of legislation all the way to the 17th century. As I was saying before, it's still kind of observed, but it's not a legal thing anymore. It's more of a political suicide kind of thing. Like, you cannot really afford to do it, so you don't do it, but it's not really because you could not. You technically could, you just don't. You just want to get re-elected, so you don't. Right. So what else? I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, there were 2 types of asylum. I'm trying to do this in English, but I'm getting so self-conscious that I kind of forget. So there were, by Norman times, there were 2 types of sanctuary, right? Lower kind, and then a broader version, or higher kind, I guess. So all churches could give you the lower level kind, but only the ones licensed by the king had the broader version of it. So from what I understand, and I could be wrong, the entire point of it is that everybody can be protected in the church, but just some churches could give you a more specific or more broad protection. Now, it's important to take into account that even though you were technically protected, you kind of were also trapped in the church. And so if people were about to execute you and you're inside the church, they cannot execute you in the church. But the moment you leave the church, you're kind of screwed. And once you're inside and the place gets surrounded, there's no way for you to get out without dying. So what ended up happening is much of the time the church would act as something of a mediator between the people outside and the people seeking sanctuary. So in many cases what would happen is that the town would be like, okay, you need to leave, we're not gonna kill you, we don't want to spend all our life just standing outside of this church hoping for you to get out so we can kill you. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna tell you, if you get the out of my town, and you're just gonna do that and get to keep your neck. What's an interesting bit of it is that during the War of the Roses, this idea of the sanctuary of the church was kind of overused by noble folk. Let's call it that way, I don't know. By, people with titles. So, which started creating a certain level of political backlash for the idea of sanctuary, because originally the sanctuary was the idea that pursued people, or people who really did not have the resources to protect themselves, should have somebody on their side, in this case the church, so they could run to and have some kind of protection afforded to them. Because then you're in the church, so you get, roof, some food, that sort of thing. But when you start getting into the War of the Roses, and you get noble people running to the church, they expect to live in the same amount of luxury in the church that they used to live in the castle, which is a problem, because now you have. I remember reading. I don't know why I didn't write it down, but I remember about a noble lady that was just in this church for a few years and brought down a couple of walls so she could have like bigger room in the church. And obviously, because you also have the church as a political entity, now you start having incentive to actually just keep the rich people in your church because they are donating, right? And you get a certain, perks for this person being in your church. And then it becomes a problem. Either way, I forgot quite a bit about the levels of sanctuary, but just as a general term, every church can give you sanctuary. Just the churches sanctioned by the king can give you a broader level of sanctuary. And it was finally abolished in England, at least by James I in the 1623. In 1623. So yeah, that, like, the idea of it's interesting. It comes simply from the fact that, hey, if you're in a sacred place, you should behave in a certain way. And then it started becoming a legalized thing and a political thing, which is fascinating to me. And this kind of regression of it, right? Because it became so common that it required, approval, or it had approval of the king and a certain level of regulation. And then you kind of slide back into, okay, there's no longer any regulation, and there's no law in the books that says that the church is allowed to do this, but there's still a social idea, or the origins of it, that is, this is a sacred place and we expect no violence to happen in this sacred place. So it wouldn't look good for you as a politician to invite violence into it. I even remember, as I was doing this research, I remember finding this news. I hope I can find it, but if I don't, that's fine. But I remember finding this news that in a country, and there was this very big movement of trying to deport illegal immigrants, and what the church did is, according to the law in that country, you could not interrupt mass. So the church started calling different fathers from around, so they would start the mass and then just go through it and not even stop, just change who was leading the mass. And they kept it going for days, where they had people in the church just 24/7, just in a mass, living, so that the police could not grab these immigrants that were sheltering in the church and deport them, which I found that is fascinating. I think on a personal level, I can be very cynical about things like this. I look at it and I'm like, okay, yeah, I understand what it's supposed to be. I understand what it looks like in paper, but I don't really think, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. But reading things like that, I think you restored a little bit of my faith in humanity. I was like, okay, that's commitment, So yeah, on that happy note, oh no, actually no. So as I was walking around, I think I found poisoned hemlock. But the interesting thing for me is that I could look at it and find the queen and slays itself and look at the flowers and be like, okay, I see this. And then I saw the poison hemlock, and at the beginning I was like, I think that's queen and slays, but it's a little too big. And then when I went closer to kind of look at it and take some pictures for the video, I was like, oh, I think this is actually poison hemlock. Not 100% sure, but I thought that was interesting because I think it illustrates a little how similar these plants are, how similar the flowers are, and how easily one could mistake one for the other. So I took picture of both the queen and slays when I found it, and then of the poison hemlock, or what I believe is poison hemlock, and I thought I could put it side by side in the video and you guys could, I don't know, look at it and tell me what you think. If you think it's actually as similar as I thought it was, or if you think like, oh no, you're just blind. Anyway, yeah, that's it for me. In this video is a little chaotic, but I'm just, I'm learning. That's the entire fun of this for me, is that I'm just playing around doing something that I've never done before. And I'm trying to have fun with it and see what that looks like, how learn from it, because I'm kind of bored with what I've been doing lately. And this hair is just, see, it's just refusing to cooperate. It's just, and it's not even wavy, because my hair is like, it's not curly, but it has like kind of little waves like that, which look kind of cute when I'm on the beach in Ecuador, because kind of they tighten up a little more and they look kind of cute on the beach, right? But these two, look at them. They are the betrayers. Like, I'm having a kind of cute hair day, because it looks messy. It does. It looks messy. But at the same time, in here today, it's like, I know it looks messy, but it's stylish messy. You know what I mean? These two, they're just not cooperating with me. They're just like, F you and everything you stand for. I don't know. I needed to say. Okay. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Okay. That's the video. Bye!